Hey everybody, welcome. Sorry, I had to push back the live earlier, but you know, when you have a 5-year-old, you gotta, you know, work around them because when I have certain conversations, I don't want to be, have him all loud in the background and things like that. So I had to reschedule the live. And even though he is right here still, I'm going to be sending him to the room for a little while so I can, have this conversation with you guys. So, welcome in. Please hit that like button as you're walking in, as you're coming in, I mean. Hey, Tamixis. Hey, Rosalind. Welcome. Yes. So yeah, we're gonna get started. Please hit that like button as you're coming in. If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. So tonight's topic is about relationships, especially about bad relationship, red flags in relationships, because I've been seeing a lot of it the last couple of weeks. Just people I know. Good job. All right, go take that. Take all the paper. Take the paper and take your markers and go to the room. Go ahead. Take some paper. Take some paper. No, take that paper with you because you still have space. Yeah, and then take another paper and take your markers and go draw in the room. Go ahead. I'm going to draw 30,000. Okay, take more paper and go to the room. At 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. So yeah, so people have been going. People that I know. There's been a few people that I've been seeing them going through some stuff, and it's just making it was making me think. So I said, you know what, let's see how many other people are going through it or have gone through it, to see just the difference of opinions of how you guys relate to this topic, and also how you have dealt with or deal with this topic. I myself am single by choice. After Jackson's dad, I have chosen to take a break. I chose to take a break from dating. I'm not that type that I need a man, to get by. And I definitely needed a break from just toxic men in general. Um, you know, so I chose to take a break from the dating scene. It's been almost 5 years now. And little by little, I am getting ready to getting that feeling to want to start dating, just because I'm not getting any younger, and it would be nice to meet my forever person, somebody that has a head on their shoulders, somebody that, has a job, has their own place, doesn't want any more kids, because I don't want any more kids, but somebody that, does get along with children and respects children and things like that, and women with children. Um, but so just watching my friends and people like that going through certain things really just had me wanting to talk about this. So welcome in, guys. Hey, Savannah, welcome in. Please hit that like button for me, guys. I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, come on in. Let me know, let me know where y'all watching from tonight. If it's your first time here, if you're catching the replay, definitely let me know that too, because I feel like tonight's conversation is one of those conversations that so many people are gonna have something to say. And honestly, this might hit a nerve, because tonight, we're talking about relationships, red flags, boundaries, things we excuse, things we tolerate, things we ignore because we love somebody, you know, and how sometimes what we keep allowing eventually comes back and hurts us even more. I know I've been there, done that, you know, dealt with things that I shouldn't have, stood in relationships too long that I shouldn't have, and this is a no judgment zone. So whether you're in it now, definitely no judgment, I get it. I get it. When you love somebody, when you've been with somebody so long, and sorry about my hair, guys. It's Sunday, it's raining. I've been off since Friday. What it is. I'm not here to show my boobs. I'm not here to be all, acting like I don't just, live. I don't get up, get dressed and put makeup on and all that just to be sitting in the house. So excuse my appearance. But yeah. Hey, Sheldon. Hola. Hola, Savannah. Hola. So yeah, please hit that like button while you're coming in. Hope everyone's having a great Sunday. Today's topic is relationships. So, like I said, this is not me judging anybody, okay? Because life is complicated. Relationships are complicated, love is complicated, and if you've ever been in something where you knew deep down something wasn't right, but you stayed anyway, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone, because I think almost everybody at some point has ignored something they should have or shouldn't have ignored. You know, some people ignore disrespect, some people ignore cheating, some people ignore lying, some ignore emotional manipulation, some ignore poor communication, some ignore gaslighting. And sometimes you ignore the feeling of being emotionally drained all the time. And sometimes we ignore those things because we love that person, because we see the potential someone may have. Sometimes because we've built history with them, because we've been together, we've been with them so long. We might have known each other since since childhood. We might have kids together. So there's definitely a lot of reasons people stay in, certain relationships. Yes, blinded by emotion, Sheldon. Yes, that's definitely one. Yeah, blinded by emotions. Um, Sometimes because we don't want to start over. I know a lot of people that stay because they don't want to start over. They might have, like I said, started a family together, built a home together, bought a house together, bought a condo together, bought a car together, and you don't want somebody else to reap the benefits of everything you built with that person. But is it really worth you being miserable? That's the question that, I have for a lot of people. Like, is it really worth it? Like, in the moment, you might think that it's worth it and you don't want somebody else to get the benefits that you built with that person. But is your unhappiness really worth that? Mom, I got 28%. Okay. Sometimes, we just keep holding on. It's getting worse. Right, Mom? Sorry, guys. So yeah, sometimes we keep holding on to the good moments, and sometimes because we genuinely believe that person is going to change. So let me know if that's ever been you. Have you gone through that? Because tonight we're just gonna keep it real. Um, like I said, I've been there, done that, so I definitely know the feeling. So this is definitely no judgment. I just want everybody to know their worth, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, any relationship you're in, you shouldn't feel, you shouldn't feel like you're trying too much or just miserable in your relationship. If you're in your relationship and you want to be loved, you definitely shouldn't be hiding anything, feeling like you're walking on eggshells or things like that, because that's not, the relationship to be in, not especially long term. Hey, B3, what's going on? Hey, Terry, thank you, thank you. Thank you for that copyright disclaimer. Hey, Nisha, what's going on? Good evening, good evening. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Tonight's topic is relationships, especially the bad relationships, those red flags that you miss or ignore. Um, Again, before we get started, hit that like button for me. If you're coming in, share this live if you know somebody that needs this conversation. And if you're new over here, please subscribe, because I definitely try to keep it as real as possible over here. No fake, perfect relationship talk, no perfect lifestyle. Look, I'm not fake. Today's Sunday, no work, raining outside. Could I have gotten all, done up? Yes, but this is me. Take it or leave it, and if you want to talk about me, but I'm me. So no pretending, my life is flawless. Just honest conversations, because honestly, to me, those are the best conversations. But I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like way too many people stay in situations where they slowly being emotionally worn down, not always physically abused, not always, obvious toxic chaos. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's little things that adding up. But one day you realize you don't even feel like yourself anymore. You second guess yourself, you overthink everything, you rehearse, conversations, you feel a certain way, that your partner might go to work, when they come back, you hear that those keys, unlocking the door, and you get that feeling like, oh man, instead of being happy that your partner is coming home, you might get that feeling of like, damn, here we go, just because everything that you're holding in, maybe you're not able to communicate with them, um you question your own feelings, you wonder if you're asking for too much, you wonder if you are the problem. But right there, that's dangerous, because love should not slowly make you lose yourself. So let me say that again. Love should not make you lose yourself. You know, have you ever have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you stopped like recognizing yourself? Like, you don't do your hair anymore, you don't get your nails done anymore, you don't dress up anymore, you don't feel like you anymore, because that's real. And people don't talk about that enough. People always, for some reason, want to act like when you're in a relationship, like it's all happy all the time. And people don't want to talk. Some people don't want to talk about the realness in relationships, the times where you start feeling alone after that honeymoon phase. Hey, Resilient. Welcome in, welcome in. Yes, double tap, hit that like button. I do have 2 streams going on. One is horizontal, one is vertical. So I do have 2 chats going on. So please, if you're in the vertical, please double tap the screen. If you're in the horizontal, please hit that thumbs up. So yes, and sorry, I do have a 5-year old. Even though I tried to push this back, he still wants to be. You know how these kids are. They want to be up your butt, but but anyway, yeah. So people definitely don't talk about the real in relationships. Sometimes they make it seem like they are so happy, and maybe some relationships are. I'm not saying that all relationships have issues, but there are some that do, and a lot of people hide that. And we shouldn't judge people even if they do choose to talk about the issues that goes on in their relationships, because who the hell are you to judge? Who the hell am I to judge? Who are we to judge? you know Everybody goes through different things, and we cannot question why somebody stays, because everybody has different feelings and opinions on relationships and why they stay in a relationship. you know um I think a lot of people, especially women, if I'm being honest, take on way too much in relationships. And I know some people won't like that conversation, but it's true. You know, we become therapists, fixers, healers, emotional support systems, excuse makers. We become the house, the what is it, the maid. We become the chef. We become the doctor, the nurse, just everything. We start carrying not only our emotional baggage, but theirs too. We explain away bad behavior. you know well, maybe they had a rough childhood. Maybe they've been hurt. Well, maybe they don't know how to communicate. They never learned how to communicate. Well, maybe they're just a little stressed from the job. Okay, but how long do you keep carrying somebody else while neglecting yourself? That's the question. That's the question I ask. How long is too long? How long are you supposed to stay in a relationship like that? And because you have children in common or involved, are you supposed to stay longer and deal with the nonsense just because you have children? That's not okay. You have to know your worth, you know? You definitely have to know your worth, and it's not worth it. Your children will not want to see you miserable. They rather see you happy, even if you're not with their dad or their stepdad. They rather you be happy, because if you be happy, you'll definitely be the best mom you can be, or the best dad you can be, because men go through it too. I know that. you know you Hey, Maddie, welcome, welcome. Hey, Corey, greetings. So yeah, so like I said, how long do you keep carrying somebody else while neglecting yourself? That's the question. Because understanding somebody's pain does not mean accepting their harmful behavior forever. That's a big difference. Hold on a minute. I am not doing that. I am not doing that.
Don't exit.
What are you doing? That's it. Here. I'm not logging onto anything. So, and I know how it happens, because it usually, starts.
Why would it exit?
I said shush.
Why did I said?
You don't need to sign in. Why are you signing in? Sorry, guys. I don't know why he's trying to sign in. You don't sign into YouTube. Just use it as guest. Here.
No, not. But don't exit. Don't exit.
Sit down or go to the room. Which one?
Sit down.
Quietly. Lord, these children, I tell you, these children want to bang Zoom to the moon. But anyway, and I know, how it happens. Um, Usually it doesn't start out terrible, right? Lower that. Usually it doesn't start out terrible. Nobody signs up, for the emotional chaos. Most toxic situations start with hope. You hope that they're gonna do better. They start with chemistry, they start with passion. you know they start on the right foot. That honeymoon stage, you get the conversation, the good conversations, you get the attention that you want. You feel very wanted, you feel like they chose you, you feel chosen, you feel special. And then what happens? Slowly but surely, things shift. Something shifts in that relationship. What is it? Maybe you're spending too much time together. Maybe you're being too nurturing. Maybe you're showing too much affection. And because you remember how good it was, you keep hoping to get that version back. And anybody know what I mean? Have you been there before? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Tiger is in my number block box.
So anybody know what I mean? So that person who seems so attentive, so sweet, so emotionally available. Because some people stay in relationships chasing what was, in the beginning, and that'll have you stuck for years. If you're not just strong enough to realize when something is really over. Now let's talk about that temporary, love, because this, you know, this is where some people, get trapped. Things are bad. You've been hurt. Y'all start arguing. You've been arguing. That communication is no longer there. The actual communication. You're frustrated. You're emotionally exhausted, thinking maybe this isn't working. Then suddenly, what happens? They do something sweet, a nice text, an apology, a hug. They take you out on a date, making you feel like it was in the beginning. You have great conversations, or just a random "I love you." A peaceful night finally, after arguing for a long time, maybe even silent treatment. You know, you have one good weekend maybe, and then suddenly you start thinking, maybe things are getting better. Maybe things are changing for the better. But then the same behavior starts right back up. And what happens? That cycle starts all over again. The cycle starts right over again. And y'all, temporary love is not enough. You know, temporary reassurance is not enough. The effort is not enough. It has to not be temporary, because relationships cannot survive off emotional crumbs. Leaving a little bit here, a little bit there, showing you love a little bit here, a little bit there. You know, if somebody only treats you right when they feel like they're might be losing you, or when you're not, showing them the attention that they want anymore, that's not consistency. That's basically relationship maintenance. You know, that's a big difference. They shouldn't be showing you love temporarily if they feel like, maybe you're about to if maybe you're about to break up with them or something. So how many people here have dealt with inconsistency. Hold on, guys. Hold on 1 minute. Sorry, guys. Oh, you know, I postponed this for a reason and he's still. But anyway, let's get started again. So, how many people have dealt with this inconsistency? Some days they make you feel like, they make you feel so loved. Other days you feel invisible. Be honest, because it's not okay, Um, communication is very important in a relationship. And after a while, if there's no communication, there's no relationship. And you cannot keep on just taking it just because you don't want to lose that relationship. Because if it's not healthy, what's the point of being in a relationship? A relationship is, I don't even say 50-50. It's 100-100. You know, each of you should be bringing the same thing to the relationship, not one is taking on more than the other. You're supposed to be a team. And let me be fair, I know no relationship is perfect. I already know that. I know that, no relationships are not no relationship is perfect. That's just not realistic. Everybody has disagreements. Everybody gets frustrated. Everybody has communication, moments that you're not getting, that you're miscommunicating. Maybe you say something a wrong way in a tone that the other person doesn't like. Maybe your voice is just a little bit too high for the other person and they think that you're trying to jump down their throat when all you're trying to do is talk, you know that's normal. But there's a difference between, normal relationship challenges and unhealthy emotional patterns. You know, a healthy relationship should have communication, compromise, respect, and accountability. And when you're with somebody else, they should make you feel that emotional safety, being able to express your feelings, not hide your feelings. This is another thing I see way too often. People, because when you try to talk with that your significant other, they might take it as nagging or that you're starting with them, and they're not taking it as you're trying to communicate with them. So then you start to keep all your feelings inside and you're not able to talk with them. And then what happens? You know, what your partner really doesn't want. You start talking to somebody else to express your feelings, to just let all those emotions go, when all you wanted to do was to be able to talk to that person and express your feelings with the one that you love and want to be in the relationship with. Being able to disagree without that emotional punishment is very important. Being able to talk without feeling afraid, that is needed. And that, emotional safety piece, that matters so much, because if you're afraid to bring things up, that's a problem, because communication is number one in a relationship. If there's no communication, what the hell is going to happen in that relationship? How much further is it going to go along? Are you going to be miserable, or are you going to be happy? To me, you're going to be miserable, because communication is everything. And um You should really be able to listen to what the person says and not think that they're just trying to start something. If somebody's bringing something up, you should take it as important as you take anything, something else, because if they're bringing it up to you, obviously it's bothering them. And don't you want your partner to feel like they can talk to you about anything and everything? you know
You can have kiss.
have y'all ever had to rehearse what you wanted to say before bringing something up? Like literally sitting there thinking, okay, I say this. How do I say this so they don't get mad?
Mom.
I know a lot of people, and I've done that too before. You know, Something bothers you, and you think of, oh my God, I want to talk about it, but how do I say it in a way that they don't get mad? Because every time I bring something up, they always think that I'm trying to start with them. How do I say this without starting an argument? You know, how do I say this without them shutting down?
Mom.
How do I say this without them flipping it on me? Because doesn't that happen in a lot when the relationship is already in that like little toxic stage? It always feels like they
Mom.
flip it on you. You might be mad about something, and all of a sudden they're flipping it on you. It's your problem. You're the one that did this. You're the one that did that. It's your fault you feel that way, and that's not okay. That's definitely not okay. Um, that's exhausting, exhausting. That is emotional exhaustion, because guess what, in healthy relationships you should be able to say, hey, this hurt my feelings, you know this hurt my feelings, or I know I hurt your feeling, come here, let me talk. Because without your partner making you regret saying anything, that's huge. Because once you start walking on eggshells, you stop being honest. You stop wanting to talk. You stop wanting to communicate. You know, you don't want to be honest. And once that honesty disappears, that relationship starts breaking little by little, you know? So you guys have to really think about that if you're in a relationship that you're not able to talk and you feel like you're walking on eggshells. Like, how much more are you going to take? Is that I'm not going to say is that okay? That is not okay. You need to know that that is not okay. And I really hope that this conversation, helps somebody, build up the courage to start communicating if you have shut down. And I'm not saying leave that person. You have to start the communication process. Start that communication process all over again and see where it goes. And honestly, then if you try and you really know that it's not going anywhere, you keep hitting a bump, you keep hitting a wall, then it's time to go. Because if you wasted, years of your life and it's still getting nowhere, what's the point of being in that relationship besides maybe a little bit pleasure here and there, or because you have your kids, or because you're getting a little financial help, or even a lot of financial help? But what about your happiness? You don't think that you're going to be able to find somebody that really knows your worth, that you can actually be happy with, you know And please, if this conversation is hitting, please hit that like button, because I know this is a conversation so many people need. And like I said in the beginning, please share this live, because I promise somebody on your timeline needs this conversation tonight, And my Cash App is on the screen. As you guys know or may not know, I am not monetized, so I can't receive gifts, super chats, or anything like that. So if you would like to donate any kind of way to the channel, my Cash App is the best way. So now let's get into the actual red flags, because some red flags are loud. You can't miss them, right? And some people excuse for way too long, you know? And we're about to talk about that, you know? So let's get into it, because some red flags are, like I said, obvious. If somebody is openly being disrespectful, that's a red flag. If they're cheating, red flag. I I should get a red flag for next time. If somebody is openly, disrespectful, red flag. Physically abusive, major red flag. But some red flags, people minimize them, excuse them, normalize them, because they don't look dramatic enough, and those can be the ones that do the most damage emotionally, because emotional damage builds slowly. It chips away at you. And before you realize it, your confidence is different, your peace is different, your energy is just different. And your self worth starts shifting. You feel like, everything that's going on in the relationship is because of you. What you are not doing is not enough. Maybe you put on a few pounds and you feel that's why. Oh, they might, they don't find me attractive anymore because, I had kids and I gained weight, or just like that. And that's scary, and you definitely have to pay attention to those red flags and that bad communication, because communication tells you so much about a relationship. And let me, be clear. Nobody communicates perfectly, that's not what I'm saying. Because if someone consistently refuses healthy communication, that's something to pay attention to. Like, have y'all ever dealt with somebody where every serious conversation becomes like impossible? You're not able to communicate at all because, like I said, they think that, you're talking at them, or your tone is the wrong tone, or you're nagging all of a sudden. you know you say, hey, can we talk? And immediately the energy just changes. There's attitude, defensiveness, sighing, just shutting down, or even walking away. Suddenly you are the problem because you wanted a conversation. Nah, that's exhausting, and time after time, eventually you're not even going to want to talk anymore. you know you're just not going to want to talk. And hey, the boxing scholar, what's going on? So yeah, eventually you're not going to want to talk anymore. You're going to start shutting down. And where's the relationship going to go from there? Because why are some adults terrified of communication? Like, seriously, why? You can talk to your friends, co-workers, people online, but when it comes to your actual relationship, suddenly that communication is impossible. I know many people that, I've talked to, they always tell me that they cannot talk to their partner, because they take it the wrong way. All of a sudden, they make them the problem, and then they shut down and they don't want to talk. And then they feel like, they get lonely. They get lonely. They don't have nobody to talk to. They might not have family that's close to them, or friends that are close to them that they can be able to communicate to. And all they wanted to was to talk to their partner. you know all they wanted to do was talk to their partner. But because, there's a communication problem, it becomes a bigger issue, And sometimes that's when the silent treatment comes in. And let's talk about that, because that silence can be actually, like cruel, because all you want to do is have a conversation, or that communication, especially when it's intentional. You really want to talk to them for a reason, because you want to get past whatever it is that is getting to both of you. You might have had an argument or things like that, and you would want to just talk it out, because communication is a way to talk it out. But some people can't handle that. The emotions get too high, and then some people are the type that then they want to become silent, not talk to you. They get up, go to work, come home from work, and don't even talk to you. And then because you don't want to start another argument, you stay quiet as well. How long does that last? A day, 2 days? I know people that have done it for weeks, like stay in the silent treatment for weeks. Is that really going to help your relationship? No, that's just going to get you two used to not communicating, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, you know? And now, sometimes people genuinely do need space, that's human, that's normal. But there's a difference between I need an hour to cool down or whatever, and emotionally punishing somebody by just disappearing. That's the big difference. Because see, some people use the silence as power. Now you're anxious, checking your phone, checking your texts, you're feeling just that tension in your home, you know overthinking. You're replaying those conversations because you're trying to figure out where it went wrong. What did you say wrong? What could you have done to make it better? Or what can you do to make it better? Always trying to fix something. Meanwhile, they know exactly what they're doing. And guess what that is? That is emotional control. Yeah, emotional control. Hey, Shelly, sis. Hey, sis. Hey, Lily, sis. Hey, Allison. What's going on? Please hit the like button, guys. I appreciate you. Tonight's topic is about relationships. So I've been talking about basically relationships and, just that mind control, emotional control, red flags that you should be noticing. And I just want a lot of you to know your worth, whether you're a man or a female in a bad relationship. Because I know it's not always the man's fault. Sometimes it can be us women too. So I'm not, with one side or the other, but it's just not okay to be in any kind of bad relationship long term. And you should not have to get used to that just because you have children, or just because you're married, or just because you know you should be able to be happy regardless. And if you with this person for years, you have to really reevaluate the relationship and realize that it's okay to walk away sometimes. If you tried everything and exhausted every outlet of trying to build that relationship, the right way through communication, and you still walking on eggshells, it is not okay. And it is okay to walk away. Don't worry about what you build together, what you feel like you might lose. Because, yeah, of course, starting over is scary. Starting over is scary. But guess what is even scarier? Living miserable for the rest of your life. Letting your children see you miserable for the rest of your life. That's even more scary, you know? Um, But has anybody ever dealt with that silent treatment? Oh my goodness. When I used to be with my with Jordan's dad, we used to give each other the silent treatment. Like literally. And when I was saying about weeks, I've been there. Like literally we could be 2 weeks silent treatment. And eventually it does get to you because then I'm like, why am I in a relationship anyway? Like it's not that serious. Like I'm not gonna be miserable just to be with somebody. I've never been that type. So eventually, it did end. And that silent treatment, like I said, you silent with them, even though you love them. Of course, you want to be affectionate towards them and things like that. But that silent treatment, that just makes you go far further and further away from each other. No communication. You start not respecting each other. Like I said, you hear those keys at the door. You start to feel like you just get this feeling, ugh, you know. But how long do you deal with that silent treatment? Hours, days, longer? Because some people will go days. Some people will go weeks. And that has to be mentally and emotionally draining. Sis said all the time, uh I don't like that. I don't like to hear that. But yeah. So yeah, that silent treatment, it really sucks. And where does that relationship go? And do you think that is a good, that the way you get back to start talking about each other is through being intimate? Being intimate is just a temporary fix. If you've been in a relationship for a long time, eventually, you start itching, they start itching, you start, of course, you laying in the same bed, and then boom, bang, things happen. And then all of a sudden, you guys start talking again. But that's just a cycle, a recurring cycle. That's just a temporary thing that makes you feel, that love again, or whatever it is, that emotional connection that you've been yearning for. And then what happens again? It always starts something, gets the other person mad. You start with the arguments again. You start with the silent treatment again, and it just keeps on going. It just keeps on coming. Is that what you really want out of your relationship? You have to think about that. And what's another red flag? When you are expressing your feelings, when expressing your feelings is treated like you're attacking them. you know you say, hey, this hurts my feelings, or whatever. You tell them something that hurt you, and then suddenly it is, here we go again. Or they might tell you, you always complaining, or you doing too much. Or you always have a problem. Like, why are you so miserable? Wait, what? So expressing my feelings is doing too much? Trying to communicate with my man, my husband, my girlfriend, my wife is doing too much? Isn't that what we're supposed to do in a relationship? Communicate? Ugh, that's why, like, I had to, like, step out of that relationship world, because I really needed to reassess what I want my next relationship to be like. I'm not going to take anything less than what I deserve. And I definitely also am learning how to communicate, and even how to talk with the right tone and things like that, so my partner won't take it a certain way. Because even though we might not, you know um feel like we're talking with an attitude or things like that, sometimes just because the level of our voice or tone, they can take it that way. So we do have to reevaluate the way we talk as well, and the way we think communication is, because not everybody communicates the right way, or the perfect way. So we have to learn what complements each other. Like, We just have to understand how they like to communicate, just so you won't have any issues in the communication area, you know? Alice is and then oh, hold on, guys. Let me plug in this thing before it dies. Hold on. Hold on. Oh. All right. So Allison says, and then next thing you know, a couple of days later, you arguing about the same thing. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? You know? So, healthy relationships really do require, communication. You cannot solve issues by just pretending, that they don't exist. You can't keep on just, hiding it, pushing it down. Um, you have to take some accountability and make sure that your spouse or partner is taking accountability too, you know, because when they don't want to communicate or take accountability, that's a red flag, you know, blame shifting, this one, because this mess will have you questioning yourself. How many of you have been in a relationship or are in a relationship where your partner likes to blame shift? You start talking about something and all of a sudden what happens? It ends up you apologizing. Why? Let's talk about that. They lied, but they'll say you pushed me to lie. They cheated. You weren't giving me enough attention. They snapped on you. You made me angry is their response, or or you're trying to talk and they just walk out or disappear or whatever. They'll say you're too controlling. If you see them flirt, they say you're insecure. Blame shifting. Do y'all hear how ridiculous that sounds? And yet people deal with this every day. This is something people deal with every day. This one that I just dealt with. That, hey, beautiful queen. Hey, sis. How do you break that cycle? I say communication, and you have to make sure you both are ready for that communication. But guess what? That's not always going to happen. And that's when you have to choose if you're going to stay or if you're going to leave. But if you stay, you already know what you're dealing with. So to keep bringing it up, you're just hurting yourself. Because if you're choosing to take it, you can't get mad when they do it. So the only way is to deal with it and just keep pushing, or decide to be strong. And sometimes you do have to walk away. I know, like I said, it could be scary, to start over and things like that. You might have built a home together, you have kids together, but are you going to keep taking it just because of that? I don't think having, the next 40 years, miserable is worth all that. Yeah, you're right. Real love isn't perfect, B3. You're right. It's the worst relationship I've been in my entire life. Aw, beautiful queen. Communication number one, talk or leave. Don't waste your time. That's what I say, Detroit. That is what I say and what I think too. And now I'm choosing me and heal, but I blame myself for opening that door again. It's okay. You live and you learn, Don't blame yourself. Don't be blaming yourself. You did what you had to do, but guess what? You also walked away. So you're already a step ahead of a lot of people. You chose to not let that love keep you with somebody that isn't right for you. So that was the right step, you know, to get ahead. But yes, Allison also said prayer. Yes, Detroit said prayer, communication, and willing to change. Yes, but you both have to be able to pray together, communicate together, and have to be willing to change. Not one willing to change and the other not. You both have to be willing to change. You know, it just is something that has to happen. And if you keep on, being the one that's changing or compromising, doing things different, and the other person is still doing the same thing, what do you do then? I'm going to ask you guys, because like I said, I'm single. I'm single for a reason because I don't deal with crap. But what do you guys say, that you guys that are in a relationship or things like that? What would you give advice to somebody that is dealing with that? You know, that's dealing with somebody that just doesn't want to change. You took all avenues, went to counseling, went to couples counseling, went to marriage counseling, went to counseling in church, did everything, doing everything. You stopped talking to certain people for them. You stopped working because of them. Um, just you're doing everything. Do you still stick with it because you made a family together? Or is enough at a certain point? And when is that point? Is it after 5 years? Is it after 10 years? Is it after 6 months? What would you guys give advice to somebody that needs it? Let me hear what's your advice. B3 said he's single his whole life. I got no help for you. Sorry. Yeah, your life ain't that long though. Your life ain't that long. You're still young. Your life is just starting. I'm one that I'll deal with it for a while, depending who it is with. But eventually, I leave. I have never been that person. I mean, I dealt with it the longest, probably like 7 years or 8 years. And that is too long. Now I'd be like, hell no. Shit. Like with Jackson's dad, I lasted 2 years and that's it. I was like, bye, see ya. I'm out of here. You know? Hey, my life's over a quarter in. Wow. To be a quarter of life. Yeah. But no. But, you know, a grown adult is really responsible for their own behavior. Nobody made them disrespect you. Nobody made them lie. Nobody made them cheat. Nobody made them disrespect you. Nobody made them try to manipulate you, gaslight you. That's their choice. Always their choice. They're adults, you know, because some people are really good at just making their behavior feel like your responsibility. And guess what? Once you accept that, you start carrying that emotional weight that was never yours to begin with, you know? And that's dangerous because you'll keep taking it. The weight keeps coming on your shoulders, you know? Have you ever been blamed for something that clearly was not your fault? And did you actually start believing it and start apologizing or end up apologizing? Because that happens a lot in relationships. Something clearly wasn't your fault. You start communicating about it, turns into an argument. All of a sudden, it's your fault, and you really start believing it. You really start believing you started the argument. It's because of the way you took it that you wanted to talk and start the argument. Why does that happen? I don't. Alyssa says, I don't know. I say pray about it, but my past kid's father left, and I think that best because when I was younger, 20s, I was just too forgiving. Yeah, I definitely think when you're in your 20s, you're more forgiving than when you're in your 30s and 40s and on. Definitely. You take a lot, You don't, you know, your heart is bigger. It's just you do take on more. You don't want something to end. You really try more, and it's harder to leave. As you grow older, you realize your worth more, and you start to not want to take something that you know that you don't deserve. You just don't. Men have to learn to compromise and be men, grow together and fight together, provide and take care of one woman and all of our kids. Yes, Detroit, that is so true. I hope a lot of men think like you. And I hope you don't just talk about it, you be about it. But yeah, and to learn how to not only compromise but learn how to communicate. That is a big thing, right? You have to learn how to communicate. um the other person is not always going to talk the way you want to talk, say the words you want them to say. So you definitely need to learn to work around that and communicate regardless of how it sounds. Allison said, now I don't know. Now I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. We live and we learn. That's how we gain our experience, right? Our life experience. We live and we learn. We live and we learn. You think I communicate now the way I communicated then? Yeah, right. When I was younger, my 20s, early 30s, I communicated with anger, with feeling, with emotions. And that's another thing. Sometimes you have to put your emotions aside and just breathe and just talk the right way without yelling. Back then it was just rah rah rah. Now with this experience of life, I learned how to communicate better. You can't just come at them. You have to learn how to come sit down. Hey, can I talk to you? And things like that. And hope for the best. Because like I said, that person, even if you do have a good tone or you think have a low voice, you just might use your hands and all of a sudden they think you have an attitude when that's just how you talk. Like you see me, I keep using my hands. But communication is really a good thing. I mean, a good thing in a relationship, and you have to have it. Um, Another red flag is when they make you feel like you're crazy. Um, that's when things really start getting emotionally draining. Hey, C Death, how are you? Beautiful Queen said logic was telling me to run, my heart was telling me to stay. And how many times have we felt that feeling? Logic was telling me to run, my heart was making me stay. Boy, I know you are not alone, sis. You are definitely not alone. I've definitely felt that way, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this have felt that way as well. We know what we deserve. We know. We know what's not right. We see the red flags, But what happens? That love keeps us there. Our heart keeps us there. I've been with my woman for 19 years. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. Woo! I love that. And I'm sure it's still not easy. But the both of you want the same thing. So you learn how to keep going together. And that's all that matters. So 19 years is a good amount of time, you know. Kudos to you guys. That's great. That's really great. I'm happy for you guys. That's awesome. I love to see love. I love to see love and long relationships. Because the relationship is not easy, but it takes two people loving each other enough to keep trying, and never lose that communication, and never, ever keep that silent treatment going for days and weeks. You might want to give each other a little break, for a couple of hours or whatever, but never let it go to the next day. When you guys lay down at night together, you better have made up already, because the longer it keeps on, you get used to that. Hey, Dr. Ninja Turtle. Thank you. It's great to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. So, yeah, so when somebody makes you feel crazy, I know some of you guys do know exactly what I mean, because I know I've talked with people that they say that that their partner makes them feel crazy. you know, um, you heard what was said, you saw what happened, but after the argument, you're confused. Suddenly, you start questioning yourself. Um, they start telling you like that never happened, that's not what they said, or you're remembering it wrong, or you're too emotional, you're overreacting, you're making something out of nothing, you're crazy. That right there, that will mess with your head, because when your reality keeps getting denied, you start thinking to yourself, maybe they're right. Am I overreacting? Maybe I am too emotional. And you stop trusting yourself. But you can't let that happen, because that's a red flag when they start doing that, making you feel crazy. That's another part of emotional abuse, and definitely a red flag. Trying to manipulate you, gaslight you. So picture this. You clearly see these messages, or something fell off, so you bring it calmly up. Instead of having a conversation, what happens? Have you ever been in that kind of relationship that they immediately get angry? Now suddenly because you happen to look over at that moment and saw something they didn't want you to see, all of a sudden you're invading their privacy. you know all of a sudden you're the toxic one, or you're insecure, you're just seeing things, or you're just starting something, you just wanted to start the drama. So they start not wanting to talk about what actually happened, what you actually saw. They start deflecting. They try to make you confused. They control the narrative. And if that becomes a pattern, that's unhealthy. That's unhealthy, you know? So have y'all ever left a conversation more confused than it started? you know, when they start to make you feel crazy, or telling you that you started the drama, or that you're too emotional. All these things that I've been saying, it just does one thing. It drains you. It emotionally drains you. And where is a relationship supposed to go when you always feel drained when you try to have a conversation with your partner? You know, manipulative people often don't want resolution. They want to control you. They don't always want understanding. They want that control. Because real conversations, real adult conversations require accountability. Manipulation requires confusion. That's the big difference. And then you find yourself over explaining yourself. That's another sign and another red flag in these bad relationships. You start over explaining yourself, explaining why you went somewhere, why you didn't answer that phone right away, why you said what you said, why you feel what you feel. Always defending yourself. And that's another reason why you're always exhausted. Healthy relationships should not feel like constant interrogation. That is control. They know in most relationships like that, it's because they know they're doing something that they're not supposed to do. They know that they're hiding something, or they did something in the past that now they feel like you're going to try to get them back. So now they don't want you going anywhere. They don't want you talking to anybody. They don't want you to, bring up anything that is bothering you. That is not okay. You know? And never let somebody put you in a corner or put you in a bubble, make you stop talking to your friends, don't let you have friends, don't let you talk to your family members. Everybody should have somebody that they're able to communicate with. And guess what? When you start to let them take over like that, they're going to continue. So I say, the moment you see that your partner is trying to control you and trying to take away your friends and your family from you, you better put your foot down. Because once you take it, it's never going to get better. You're never going to be able to have friends. You're never going to be able to hang out. You never, sometimes in some situations, they don't even let your family come over, But everybody needs somebody that's not their partner. Like, yes, your partner could be your best friend, that you love to be with them, that you don't even mind being with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But guess what? That does become a little bit dangerous. You have to have somebody besides your partner that you hang out with, that you're able to go get brunch with or lunch with, or even just take a stroll in the park with. Like, it shouldn't be, having a friend shouldn't be something negative. And that's where it does get scary, when that person just wants you to themselves all the time. Nah, that's not okay at all. Since Detroit said it was blame him. Wait, what? What did I miss? What did I miss? Detroit, what you hiding? Detroit be making me over. Yes, know your worth. Know your worth. Detroit, what you hiding? Well, stay out of Rock City. Oh Lord. Hey, Miss Dee, sis. Since when was this Rock City yours? I didn't see any name on it, ma'am. That's annoying. That's control. Red flag. Definitely a red flag, right? When they want you all to themselves, when they don't let you have friends, when they don't let you hang out, when they don't even let you go to lunch together. You know, you might meet somebody at your children's school and all of a sudden they don't want you to be even talking to that person. That's a red flag. And never, ever agree to it, guys. Don't agree to that, because then that's going to be your life. That's going to be your relationship from then on. From the moment you take that, from the moment you don't put your foot down, they're just going to keep doing that kind of thing, and it's going to get worse and worse, and they're going to think that they own you, that you're their property. And that's not it. That's not a relationship. Hey, Keisha, sis. I can't be with someone 24/7, right? I mean, I have loved somebody and been with people that that our relationship was at that point good, that I wouldn't mind being with them all the time. But I'm the type that I've always had friends that I wanted to hang out with and do other things. I'm not the type that as soon as I get a man, that's it, I forget about my friends and they don't exist anymore. No, I'm the type that, yes, hey babe, I'm gonna go out to dinner, or I'm gonna go to brunch, or I'm gonna just whatever with my friend. And that's another thing that why Jackson's dad and I didn't last, because I have a best friend since kindergarten. I have a friend of over 15 years, and other friends. And the moment that I wanted to go out, all of a sudden I was cheating, even though at the time he didn't care. Like, he would say, all right, whatever. But then what happens when you have an argument or something? That's when you start learning the real them. All of a sudden they start bringing up that you must be hanging out or want to hang out because you're cheating or something like that. So that's a red flag, because guess what? I was the type that was like, I would say, go hang out with this one, go hang out with that one, just so I could get a break. Like I said, because I'm not one to be up under somebody's ass 24/7. So I'd be like, oh, go hang out with your friend. Go hang out, you worked a lot of hours this week. Go hang out with your friends, get a little break, go have a little drink, then come back home. And I wouldn't be like, oh, you're cheating on me and blah, blah, blah. So when they try to spin the narrative, you better realize that's a red flag. I would say, please go cheat on me. Lily, stop your shit, girl. Nah, but we really have to stop. Stop taking what we know we don't deserve just because we may have built something together. Just because we have children together, or just because you have children together, or just because you bought a car together, or just because you bought a house together. That's not okay. Don't be miserable just because of material things, you know and guess what? I won't even go there, but yeah, it's not worth it. Don't stay with somebody just because of material things. Believe me that you're worth more than that. You think that you're gonna hurt your children if you leave, because they want to see mom and dad together, and they're already used to a certain lifestyle. But believe me, first of all, if you're the mom, regardless if you're the mom or the dad, you're gonna do whatever you can to make those kids happy, regardless if you're with their dad or mom or not. So never let that keep you together, because those kids want to see you happy regardless. They don't want to see you miserable in the relationship with their parent just because of them. And imagine they're gonna see you miserable all the time, crying or things like that. And then in the future, you tell them that you stood with their dad or their mom because you didn't want to see them miserable. Imagine in the future that they tell you that it did hurt them, that they did see you, how sad you were, and how's that going to make you feel? So you really have to think about that, because trust me, moving on is not the end of the world. As long as you guys are able to co-parent and things like that, those kids would never miss out on the love that they need and deserve from their parents. So it's okay sometimes, if, like I said, if all the avenues have exhausted, if you tried the counseling, if you tried the communication, if you try and try and try and try, it's okay to not have it in you to try any longer, especially when you're together for, many, many years. Eventually, something got to give. And if you're the only one trying and trying and trying, and that person is not trying, that person doesn't show you no love, that person doesn't show you any care, that the only thing that person shows you is money, paying your bills, things like that, is that what you're worth? Is that all you're worth? But like I said, this is not a judgment zone. I'm not judging you, because everybody stays for their own reason. I just want you guys to know that you have the power within yourself to be strong, to be able to move on and still be the best version of yourself. Because guess what? That will push you to be the best version of yourself. And you'll be happy. Trust me. Of course, you'll be uncomfortable at first. You might even struggle at first. But trust me, especially when you have kids, you are not going to let your kids struggle. You are not going to let your kids be miserable and unhappy. You're going to do what you have to do to make the rest of your life and their life the happiest ever. You're not going to let that defeat you. Even though, like I said, it might be uncomfortable. It might be, you might be sad at first, but you'll definitely be able to make something out of nothing. Trust me. Hey, Tinker Sis. I don't know if I said hi to you, but hi, Tinker Sis. Yeah, I just realized I deserve to be fed grapes like they did in ancient times. I feel it's a deal breaker. B3, when somebody loves you enough, they will do it. As long if you're feeding them, if they're feeding you grapes, you better be doing something just as good for them. Tinker said, exactly. I would rather move on than make my children miserable. No one can pour from an empty cup. Diamonds are built under pressure.
Mom,
Yes.
can you give me Chips Ahoy?
Wait, life gets better. Yes, life definitely gets better. That is so true. No matter what you might feel. Hold on.
I love Chips Ahoy.
You love Chips Ahoy?
Yeah.
All right, for a minute.
Yay!
Your life and your happiness should never be tied to one person. Yes. They can have a banana. Really? 50-50 relationship. I spoil the women in my life. I like that. Yeah, no, but I like when I'm in a relationship, I spoil the man in my life too. I love to be affectionate. I love to, I'm a giver too. Like, I love to spoil my person. If I know they like something, or if I know that if they say that they've been wanting something, I'm the one that goes out and gets it and surprises them. You know, I am that person too. I've been choosing to be alone for almost 5 years, but I am getting there. starting to want a relationship again because I'm not getting any younger. But I'm not gonna settle for less either, you know. This dating world, this dating pool is really scary. It's really, really scary. But I'm really hoping that I find someone that is like matches me. I hope I meet the missing piece to my puzzle. You know what I'm saying? The one that's meant for me, the one that we're able to communicate and all that, you know? I definitely hope so. I believe that that person will come in time. But, you know, you just got to do what you got to do. But definitely realize those red flags and try not to stay long. And even if you are there long, it's not too late, you know? It's definitely not too late. You can leave, you know, and trust me, you might be sad and crying and emotional at first, but you will get that. Is just a feeling that you definitely will get over. You might feel like you never get over that feeling. Didn't I say be quiet? All right. You might feel like you never get over that feeling, but trust me, you will. Even if it takes a few months, a year, you'll get over that feeling and you will not regret it. I promise you. I promise you. If you decide to move on and you, after a year or two, you regret it, then come back to me and tell me I should not have left. I regret it. But I bet you won't. But all right. So, that was a lot, right? That was definitely a lot. But there's a lot of red flags, you know, love bombing, control disguised as love, you know, definitely pay attention to those narcissistic type patterns, you know, the breadcrumbing, trauma bonds, you know, the blame shifting. Just you have to pay attention to all those red flags. Um, the love bombing, especially, you know, something happens, all of a sudden they start showing you the affection and attention you need, you know, they start giving you that communication, but then what happens as soon as they don't get their way or they don't get what they want, or if you know, you try talking something out that how you feel about something, it just starts the cycle all over again. The disrespect, the things like that, you definitely have to pay attention because love bombing will definitely think that your relationship has a chance, you know, and it gets dangerous, you know. They start talking about the future with you, you know, you'll be on the phone with them for hours if they don't live with you, you know, and then you start to feel like you never felt like that before, you know? You feel like you can't see yourself without them. You know, they open up to you, you open up to them. They say sweet words, you know. They tell you they love you, you know, but as soon as, you know, you try to have that communication with them, it starts all over again. 8 billion people in the world sometimes out there. Yeah, right? That whew, there's a lot. But this dating world is still whew, is a pot of piss. It's a sea of piss.
Hey, Mom.
I believe that he is out there for you, M3. I hope so. I hope so. Hey, TC sis. I had two men to tell me they regretted me leaving, my son's dad and my ex-husband. I bet they did. I bet they did. They always realize that the good woman once you're long gone, you know? Once you're long gone, then all of a sudden, you know, when they had a long time that, you know, you gave them plenty of chances to change, you know, to grow up. That happens all the time.
It's not good.
You know, I've had my exes tell me they still love me too, and I just be like, don't tell me that.
I like this.
You know, don't tell me that. But yeah, love bombing is definitely a thing. They give you everything that you're craving, all that emotional connection. You know, they make you feel wanted. They make you feel chosen. You know, they just make you feel all the feels. But you have to pay attention because that is a red flag, especially when you haven't had a great relationship and all of a sudden they start love bombing you. You have to definitely realize that that's actually a red flag. Hey, Elevated. What's going on? Happy Sunday. So yeah, so let's be honest, you know, I've been here talking for like an hour and a half already. Damn, this topic will keep you talking, right? This topic will really keep you talking. But you know, a lot of people don't fall for the hold on 1 minute. Hold on for sorry guys. So yeah, you know, a lot of people don't fall for the toxicity. They fall for the attention, you know, and that right there, because sometimes what hooks people isn't the bad behavior, it's how good the beginning felt. It's good, it feels good how that love bombing feels, you know, that extra attention when things go bad and all of a sudden they start giving you the attention that you were asking for, or you think about how the beginning felt, you know, and then once things change you spend months or years trying to get back to that version of what your relationship used to be. Anybody know what I mean by that? Anybody been through that? You know, I definitely went through that before, you know. But I'm one that, you know, I definitely deal with it for maybe too long, but eventually I do walk away.
Yes. May I lower my voice?
Yeah, so you know, um so have you guys ever stayed because you kept, you know, hoping the person from the beginning of your relationship will come back? Let me know. If you're in the chat now, if you're watching the replay, answer me that. Have you ever stayed in a relationship because you kept hoping the person from the beginning of your relationship would just magically come back? And have you been in a relationship where that person has changed for the better and it turned around? Like it might have been good, then toxic, then they changed back to good, and you know, you guys stood like that? Have you been through different seasons in your relationship? Something's irritating my hand. Oh no. Oh, I have alcohol here.
I wronged you that.
I know, leave it.
Our mother said.
What that means, Lily. What that means, Lily.
Hi, Lily. Hi, Lily.
Look, your nephew saying hi. Yeah, my marriage is depending on the season. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jackson, but I want I went to the park already. And I have to, and I went to Chuck E. Cheese, and we got Dad and Anaya and me, and I was go to the car and was driving.
He'll tell you his whole weekend. He just told you his whole weekend.
That's my favorite for now.
He told you what he did for his whole weekend. Anaya's his sister. He went to Chuck E. Cheese with his dad and his sister. But yeah, guys. But you ever had the switch up? The same person, so attentive, so affectionate, emotionally there for you, emotionally available, and then something starts changing. Then they start to be distant, cold, maybe hard to reach, less affectionate, less patient, or even less interested. Like all of a sudden, they're not interested in talking to you. They might not call you like they used to. Those calls might get shorter. The texts might get less. And because you remember the beginning, you start thinking, maybe they're stressed, maybe they're working too much, maybe it's just something's going on that they haven't told me about, that they're not comfortable talking to me about. Maybe I need to be more understanding, and sometimes, sure, life does happen, shit happens that they might not want to talk to you about, but if the inconsistency becomes like all the time, it becomes a pattern. That's different, then there's something definitely wrong. If all of a sudden they were affectionate towards you, they showed you love, they wanted to be with you all the time, and then all of a sudden something just changes, there's something wrong in that relationship. And if you're not able to communicate, that's definitely a red flag. Yikes. This me when I'm no longer interested. Facts, right? You read the text, you don't answer the text. You see the phone call, you just let the phone ring. They want to take you out, you find an excuse. I mean, that does happen, but you definitely have to watch out for those red flags, because it doesn't get better. It's just going to get worse, you know? And definitely you have to pay attention to, the control disguised as love. If they don't like you dressing a certain way after you met them dressing a certain way, all of a sudden they don't want you dressing a certain way, because they don't want, other men or women to look at you, but that's how they met you. But you think it's because, oh, they love me, they don't want nobody else to look at me like that, or feel, see me that way, and you think, that's because they care, but that's things you have to listen to. Like, I just don't want you wearing that, or I don't like that friend. All of a sudden they don't want you to hang out with this friend. All of a sudden they don't like that friend, even though that friend doesn't do nothing, even though that friend is married or in a relationship, or they start asking you why you need to go out when they met you in the beginning, the first 6 months to a year. They were fine with letting you hang out with your girlfriends or your guy friends. All of a sudden they're asking you, why do you need to go out? Or you get a text or a call. Who's texting you? Who's calling you? Are you thinking, oh, they just love me? That's why they want to know these things. Or what about this one? Send your location. What do you guys think about that? Giving your partner your location. Do you think that's okay? Do you think it's about love and care, or do you guys think that's control? What do you guys think of that? Because I see that a lot lately now, more than before. Nobody shared locations before, but I do realize people in relationships do that now. What you guys think of that? Do you think it's control, or do you take that as care? And are you guys the type that like to know your partner's locations? Let me know. Tinker said, I can be very cold and distant. Yeah. When I don't like somebody anymore, or when I'm not interested, I definitely start being cold. That's why I said, when I start being silent in a relationship, just know I'm not there anymore. Physically, I'm there. Emotionally, not so much.
Hey, look,
You know?
I tried number block 10. I tried number block 10. Right
So,
now,
what do you guys think about locations? I mean, I think you could know if somebody's trying to be just controlling, If we have a great relationship and things like that, and of course if you're not hiding anything, you're going to give your location up just fine. And if you know that you're in a good relationship, you're not going to feel a certain way. But what about if you are like in a controlling relationship? Are you going to give that person your location? And what about if they give you an ultimatum, like, if you don't give me your location, that's it, it's over? Are you going to give it to them because of that, or are you going to say, oh well, I guess it's over then?
11.
Because now that's a new thing in these days and age. That's what people want, your location.
I am 11. 11.
And another red flag is them always asking you, why are you always on your phone? But healthy relationships have boundaries. That's normal. But control, that's different, because control slowly limits your freedom, your confidence, your independence. You start feeling like you have to run everything by them. You might have been a very independent person before that relationship, and all of a sudden you find yourself asking, can you go here, with this person? Or you start say, or you get a phone call from your friend and you start not picking up because it bothers him. Believe me, and really think about it, that's control. That's not love. That is control. That person is trying to control you. Hey, mentors, welcome, welcome. So, yeah, it builds slowly, but they're definitely showing you controlling behavior, and it doesn't always start, big and that you see it, but just pay attention to those red flags. Pay attention, you know? And definitely pay attention to those narcissistic type patterns, because not diagnosing anyone, but definitely pay attention to those behavior patterns, because certain patterns show up in emotionally unhealthy dynamics. No accountability is definitely a big one, a huge one. Nothing is ever their fault. Have you been in a relationship where nothing is ever the other person's fault ever? They lie, excuse. They disrespect, excuse. They hurt your feelings, excuse. Everything gets justified, right? And if you bring it up, what happens? Now you're like attacking them. They take it like you're attacking them. And that's definitely narcissistic, playing the victim. Oh my God. That's another one. Playing the victim is definitely a narcissistic trait. People who somehow become the victim in every situation. You say that something bothers you or hurts you. Now suddenly they want to say like, Oh, so they taking it like you calling them like a terrible person. Like, oh, all of a sudden, oh, I'm a terrible person. Or I can, or they try to like change it on you. Oh, I can never do anything right. You always make me feel bad when they're the ones that hurt you. Now all of a sudden they try to change it around. Hold on, what? So now you end up comforting them. Has that ever happened when you went to your partner saying something hurt you, but then all of a sudden they flipped it on you and now you're trying to comfort them because you don't want them to be mad at you? See that one? That's emotional manipulation. Hey, Buck 3. Oh, you had to change it, right? You had to change. You see, you have so many. You have so many.
Hey, you give me a hug. You give me one hug.
But how many of y'all had to comfort the person who hurt you? They hurt you, but you end up comforting the person that hurt you. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of people do this. I've heard a lot of people do this. A lot of people tell me they do this. You know, that they start trying to communicate with somebody about something that hurt them, and because that person turns it around on them, they get mad. They act like you hurt their feelings because you say they hurt you. All of a sudden, they're comforting them. You know, and another one that you have to pay attention to, a narcissistic trait, is the lack of empathy. Because this one matters. When somebody genuinely cannot sit with your pain, you express your hurt, they minimize it, they dismiss you, they get annoyed with you, or even change the subject, you know, make everything about them. That matters, you know, because empathy is foundational in a healthy relationship. You know, if you hurt somebody, if you need to be empathetic towards them, if you really care about them, you know. But when they have a lack of empathy, everything becomes one-sided. You know, that it's always gonna be your fault. It's always gonna be something you did, you know, and that does not build a healthy relationship. Yep, Miss Didi, narcissistic or narcissist. Yes, narcissistic. Those are not. I was talking about the narcissistic traits in relationships that people need to pay attention for. You know, need, and another thing, need for attention, validation. You know, another pattern. Everything revolves around them, their emotions, their needs, their problems, and nothing matters. You don't matter. Your emotions don't matter. Your needs don't matter. Your priorities don't matter. It's just their schedule, their priorities. And when it's your turn, nothing. Minimal effort. Birthdays, nothing. Anniversaries, nothing. You know, Christmas, Mother's Day, nothing. But when it comes to the birthdays, Father's Day, you know, things like that, then all of a sudden they expect you to do something for them. But when it comes to you, nothing. Minimal emotional support. That imbalance drains you. And that's another red flag and narcissistic trait, the need for attention. They want all the attention. And when any attention is on their partner, they'll start an argument or something like that just so the attention can go back to them. Hey, little Mo. Mentor says, I know I myself can be narcissistic on certain topics and views, yet I am getting better and better. I am getting better and being more self aware. My bipolar doesn't help, but at least you are aware. You know, you are aware. That's good. And hopefully, in your next relationship, you'll, be able to catch, you know, your narcissistic traits coming out. That's all that matters. As long as you realize it and see it and catch it and try to go from there. If you catch what you're doing, that's good. Also, not to make any excuses. Some of us are on the spectrum and not socially equipped and awkward. Yeah, you're right. That I understand. Definitely. Definitely, definitely. Welcome in, Little Mo. Glad to see you here. So yeah, I was just talking about relationships and all the red flags that you need to pay attention to, and just the patterns, just the patterns that keep going, the narcissistic traits that they may have, just the bad intentions that a lot of people have in relationships, and things you need to pay attention to and realize that after all the avenues exhaust of trying to change that, I mean, not to change the dynamic and to work together, eventually enough is enough, and it is okay to walk away. If you try counseling and things like that, whether you're in a relationship, marriage, all that, if you've done all the work, if you've done all the counseling and everything, and it's still the same thing, the same patterns over and over, eventually enough is enough. And that is okay, guys. You don't have to stick around or be in a bad relationship just because you love that person, or just because you don't want the next person to reap the benefits of what you built together, or because you have children together. It's okay to start over. It definitely is okay. But a lot of people definitely need to pay attention to these patterns and traits and things that may come along or have come along in your relationship, and realize that it is a bad thing. And most people, if they don't want to, they're not going to change. And you cannot make somebody change. They have to want to change themselves. You would never be able to change somebody. They have to want to change. I know many may view myself as a red flag, yet if I am given the opportunity or chance, I can try to explain my actions, and I'm honest to tell others I'm flawed and trying to become better. Yeah, nobody's perfect. That's the thing. But in a relationship, you just have to learn how each other's, communication is, and learn how to communicate with each other, you know and definitely you have to listen to your partner. If your person is telling you that they're hurt, even if you feel like you didn't do anything, just listen to them. Sometimes that's all the other person wants, is to know that their feelings are valid, that you're listening, that you're trying to understand how they feel, not the other way around, that you try to tell them that they're too emotional, or that they're nagging, or things like that, or try to bring it around to them like it's their fault they feel that way. They just want you to listen. Sometimes sitting in silence is a thing too, is a good thing. Sometimes they just want you to listen to them, you know listen, hug them, show them some kind of affection, let them know that you're listening, and that you know their feelings are valid. And that will take you a long way. That will get you far in a relationship. Yet I am old enough and aware that most people don't want to waste their time or energy. Yeah. But a lot of people actually waste a lot of time and a lot of energy with somebody that's not meant for them any longer. You know, there's a season and a time for everything. And sometimes that time runs up, you know? You were meant to be with that person for a certain amount of time. And sometimes, you just gotta move on, walk away, start over, not with someone new, start over for yourself, to see what's the next chapter in your life. I don't believe in living miserable with somebody. If I'm going to be miserable, I'd rather be alone and make myself happy. Even though in a relationship, you should still be making yourself happy. Never rely on somebody else to make you happy. And that's another thing I've learned as I grow older. You have to be happy within yourself. You have to make yourself happy. That other person just brings that joy, out of you and when you're together. But when that person's away from you, you should still be happy and joyful, you know? Another thing is trauma bonds. Ooh, that's a big one, right? That one's deep. Trauma bonds, toxic love that feels so addictive. You both went through something. It could have been something that you both went through, in your past. You both had a toxic relationship, or you both had parents that, abused you, or you both left past relationships with that were bad, so you trauma bond, and those emotions become passion, you know but then they become pain, comfort, confusion, hope. But it's actually just an emotional roller coaster. It hooks you in, it hooks you together because I don't know, it's just that feeling. You feel like that emotional connection with them because of that trauma bond, and then you can't see yourself with nobody else but them. But that one is really, you know, deep. And then people wonder why, you know, why don't you leave? As if emotions are simple, but they're not, you know, because that inconsistent affection can actually become addictive, you know? You get some bad treatment, but then you get that affection, then they cause you some kind of pain, but then they comfort you for some kind of reason. Those emotions just start running high, and you just get used to that
Are you done
pattern. No, I'm not done yet.
almost?
I'm definitely not using that phrase incorrectly, but thank you for your opinion. Thank you so much. I think I know what that has been. I've researched it plenty of times, but thank you, Dr. TSM, for your um thank you. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you so much. Yes, I can deal with any trauma bonding. I can be empathetic, yet I like to offer solutions and overcome challenges in life. And too many creators. I'm actually not, I don't consider myself a creator. I just come on and do what I do. I talk, I'm real. I talk how I feel. I don't try to act, So please don't use me as in the same, you know, thing as too many creators. I am myself. I'm my own person. I don't try to be like anybody. I don't try to talk like anybody. I just talk how I feel. But thank you. Thank you for that. I'm just saying my opinion. I'm not a dictionary. I'm not, I'm just saying how I feel. If you've been here for the last 2 hours, then you would know that. But yeah, a lot of too many people, like if you lost your, like I know people that trauma bonded through losing their parents, through losing their mom, although they lost their mom in a different way, that they trauma bonded through that experience of losing their mom, you know? So that made them feel like they had something in common, and that brought them closer together. And sometimes that experience makes you feel like that other person knows you so much that nobody else will understand you. And sometimes, it just brings you together. Jackson.
Yes. Can you give me chips or boys?
No, that's it.
I don't want
But
it.
yeah.
But I
So
don't-
definitely pay attention to all these red
No,
flags and
I don't want
these
it.
patterns in relationships, these negative relationships, toxic patterns, negative patterns, narcissistic patterns. Just pay attention because a lot of people stay in these bad relationships with these bad behaviors because of love, because of history, because of children, fear, you know, loneliness, financial dependency, maybe even low self worth, hope for change, or for comfort, not wanting to be alone, not wanting to not wanting to start over, being emotionally attached, or even feeling like nobody will ever love you like they love you. But do they really love you? That's the real part. Do they really love you? And I don't think people should be judged for that, because people are human. You stay in sometimes too long, longer than you should. And I'm definitely not judging anybody, because I believe that when you're ready to leave, you definitely will leave. You'll know deep down when you are ready to leave. And no matter what advice I give to anybody, or what anybody else gives to somebody, you're gonna leave when you want to, when you're ready. But I just want to bring awareness to let you know that it's okay to start over. That although it makes you feel uncomfortable, and you feel like you'll never find another relationship like that, or you'll never be able to get another. Jackson, lower that. You might feel like you'll never be able to get another house like the house that you live in now, or you never get person that's financially stable the way the person that you are with now is. That's not true. You can definitely get somebody that is the same financial, at the financial level that you need. But guess what? You can be that person for yourself until you're ready to get in another relationship. This time you are going to have experience to know what to look for. And you're going to have the strength to not take what you don't deserve. And that's what I hope for everybody, you know? Thank you. We appreciate you just as you are. Thank you, Dr. Ninja Turtle. I sometimes can be too analytical and have to let others clarify before I speak many times. I hear that, mentors. But yeah, so I do believe that, everybody has that strength, but everybody has to leave when they're ready. I don't push anybody. If a person talk to me about whatever, I might give them my advice, but I definitely let them know that I'm not judging them. And once I give them that my advice, I'm not the type that'll keep on talking to, keep on telling them, and keep on, trying to make them leave their partner or anything like that. I actually push them to work on it the most they can. But I do tell them, I give them their options for their future. Like, tell them that, they are strong. I let them know, I see their worth. I see their potential. I know they will do great on their own, you know, but I let them know that also that I'm not judging them and that I will be there for them regardless, whether they stay or not, and if they choose to stay, that I do understand them, and I just hope one day for themselves that they could be really happy, because right now, if you're dealing with any of this in a relationship, you're not happy. And all I want people to be is happy in their life, you know? It's not worth being in a relationship and you're miserable just to be with somebody, just to feel like you have somebody. Because what about if you're in a relationship that you still feel lonely? What about if you're in a marriage that you feel like you're single? Is it worth staying? But that's why I do need people to be honest with themselves, and hopefully they'll open their eyes in time, but when it's not too late, but loving somebody is not enough. I need people to hear that love is not enough. Love without respect is not enough. Love without communication is not enough. Love without emotional safety, love without accountability, not enough. Because some people, think, oh, but they love me. Okay, but how long are they loving you? Are they really loving you if you don't even feel love? If you don't even get the emotion or affection you need? If you don't get to communicate with them at all when it comes to about your feelings? Do you go on dates? Are you always alone? Do they help you in the household that you built together? Because love is not just words. Love is behavior. Love is action. Remember that. Love is not just words. Love is not just sex. Love is action. Now, are you really loved? So that's just how I feel, guys.
Look, 10 is the rectangle. Look, 10 is the rectangle.
Good job. Good job.
Hello? Guys, where are you?
Hey, Ryan.
Look,
What's going
Look,
on?
9 and 10, they're next in line. They're next in line.
Let me see. I missed some comments. You B3 said I'm hitting the nails on the head. As we all have our boundaries and limits, I try to be respectful and earn others' trust so they know I offer advice in good faith and no personal agenda. Yet we all have our journeys. Exactly. We can give advice. We can be a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on. Who am I to judge? I'm not going to judge you. Everybody has their own path in life, but I just hope and I tell people and try to give them that they need. And I try to make them see and know that they are stronger than they think they are, So,
I love number blocks.
yeah. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not seeking. It is not easily angered. And it continues. Yes. you know? But all that history, routine, potential, familiarity, children is not a reason to stay. I know those things can definitely be hard to let go of, but relationships cannot be built on potential forever, because potential doesn't comfort you, during hard times. Potential doesn't communicate. Potential doesn't show accountability. Potential is not reality, you know? Um, yeah. So you definitely need to know your boundaries, know, what not to accept. You can't always be forgiving. If you're always forgiving, you better believe that same behavior is gonna come back around, especially if it has to do with cheating or things like that. If you keep on accepting that behavior, it's never gonna end, you know? Um, but definitely pay attention to those red flags, because healthy relationships, of course, are not perfection, not fantasy. It's just healthy. Healthy love should feel safe, safe to communicate, safe to disagree, safe to be honest, safe to express emotions, and safe to have those hard conversations, you know? Healthy love is respectful, compromise, empathy, accountability, mutual care. Healthy relationships are not one person constantly sacrificing while the other keeps taking. That's not compromise. That's imbalance. And that's not a healthy relationship, And you shouldn't be walking on eggshells, Definitely don't be walking on eggshells. In a healthy relationship, you walk on eggshells. You should be able to say what you want to say, when you want to say it, and just in a respectful way. You both should definitely have respect for each other, Don't be beating yourself up, But I understand that we all have to learn through experience, We have to learn, grow, and we definitely have to recognize these patterns sooner than later, And if someone has come out of something unhealthy, remember that healing matters, rebuilding matters. But make sure before you move on to the next relationship that you heal, and heal the correct way, even if you have to give yourself time. Jumping from relationship to relationship is not healthy for you, or if you have children. Sometimes you need to give yourself time, or you always need to give yourself time. And time, I mean 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, like me. But definitely make sure you're healed before you jump into the next, you know. Um, yeah, just pay attention, you know. Self-worth matters, You should not have to shrink yourself to be loved. You should not have to silence yourself to keep the peace in your house, Your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid, And sometimes, and if somebody only values you when they think they might lose you, that's something to think about. Remember about that. The minute they feel like they're losing you, all of a sudden they start showing you affection and everything that you asked for. That's something to think about. And pay attention if the cycle continues, because more than likely it will continue. You'll be good maybe for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, 2 months or 3 months if you're lucky. But most of the time, that cycle would just start right over again. So pay attention to those cycles, because eventually you're going to get tired of it. And I hope you choose to walk away. So let me leave this with y'all, because love is beautiful. Of course, relationships can be very beautiful. Partnership, connection. I miss that. I do miss that connection, the relationship. I do miss that. And I know it definitely is beautiful when it's real. This conversation is not about telling people to leave, after the first disagreement. I do believe in working it out, trying to communicate the best you can, even going to counseling in need be. And never think that you're too good for counseling. Sometimes it's needed. And a lot of the times I've seen it work. So I'm not the type that, I'm single, so I'm going to tell you break up with your person. No, try everything you can to make it work, especially if children are involved. But if you've tried and tried and it's been years already and you still feel alone, if you still don't get the love you deserve, if you still don't get that partnership that you require, that you need to require, because that's something you should require, that's not real life. That's not real love. And I'm saying, and what I am saying is just pay attention. Pay attention to the patterns. Pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to how conflicts get handled. Pay attention to whether you feel, emotionally safe to talk to your partner about anything you want to, and not feel like you have to walk on eggshells if you do feel a certain way. Pay attention to whether, your voice is being heard or it doesn't matter. Just pay attention, and remember that temporary effort is not enough. Temporary reassurance is not enough and is not stability. Potential is not reality. And loving someone should never require abandoning yourself. You should never feel abandoned, like you abandon yourself, you abandon your self-worth, you abandoned, your integrity. You should never feel that way. Yes, time definitely goes fast. Divorce is truly not an easy thing. It does have unseen consequences that we may not have thoroughly thought through. Yeah, everyone's situation is different. I wish all the best, and there is hope. Yes. And those of us that are single, we will find somebody eventually. I'm not gonna rush into it. I'm definitely gonna take my time when I start dating. I'm getting there. I'm getting there after almost 5 years. I think I'm ready to start again. But we'll see. Only time will tell. But definitely, guys, I appreciate everybody that passed through today. If this conversation hit tonight, please hit that like button. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. If this is your first time here, please hit subscribe. I have a lot of conversations like this, lifestyle, entertainment news, all the things, cooking. If those of you that don't know, I haven't made any cooking videos because my refrigerator is still out of order. It's been almost 3 weeks, no working refrigerator. So I have not been doing my cooking videos like I was doing, and I miss it so much. I'm waiting for a part for my refrigerator that my management ordered. So I hope it comes. So like I said, if you like lifestyle, if you like entertainment, if you like real life conversations, if you like cooking videos, please hit subscribe. Share this live. Hopefully it reaches somebody that needed to hear all of these things, that needs to pay attention to the red flags. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have dealt with any of these issues, if you worked through these issues and still in the relationship, or if you had to walk away, you know, because I do love having these real conversations and I love to hear your experiences. I love to hear your opinions. I just love to hear from you guys. So drop in the comments for replay viewers and let me know what's one red flag you'll never ignore again. And let's just keep this conversation going, okay? I love you guys. Thank you so much for engaging. Thank you for supporting me. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you, Dr. Ninja Turtle. I can't wait for your next video live. Thank you so much. Yes, I can't wait for my refrigerator to be fixed so I could start cooking again for you guys. I love doing that. But yes, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that passed through. I thank you everybody that hit that like button. And you know, I really always I'm grateful for you guys that pass through almost every live stream. And if you're new, welcome. And I'll see you on the next one. Good night, y'all. Happy Sunday and happy Memorial Day. And let's remember those who have served for our country.
Memorial Day is on May 24th.